All right, guys, welcome to my first podcast. We have a very special guest, Dr. Shyam Lakshman, MD, also happens to be one of my very close friends and a classmate at University of Cincinnati Med School. A little bit about Shyam. He went to the University of Maryland for undergrad, where he studied biology, correct? And then before medical school, he took 2 gap years where he did scribe work at an emergency department and did post-baccalaureate research in the National Institutes of Health in Bethesda. Very impressive. After doing his research and scribe work during his gap years, he, of course, matriculated into the University of Cincinnati College of Medicine with yours truly, and wanted to have an illustrious 4 years, and ended up not only becoming senior advisor of the Medical Student Component Governing Council of the American Society of Anesthesiologists, but went on to match his #1 choice in residency at the Mount Sinai program for anesthesia. So without further ado, Dr. Lakshman, how are you doing tonight?
Dr. Jalbert, it is truly an honor. My whole life has amounted to this moment, and so I'm very honored that I'm your first guest. And it's been a wild ride, man. Ever since we started med school together, I'm glad that we've seen each other evolve, and now we're here to this moment. I'm happy to share my experiences so far.
Awesome, man. I'm looking forward to, talking about your experience in med school, some of your study habits, some of the ways that you kick back in med school, and, ways that you feel are important and that you probably still exercise as an intern resident. And in this podcast, it's not just going to be me and my good friend broing out. We're actually going to talk about some interesting topics that hopefully are beneficial to all of you, that, either benefit to the way you study, can give you insight into what it's like transitioning through medical school and into residency, as well as maybe some smattering of controversial topics in medicine lately, if we have some extra time. So the first question, obviously, just Shyam, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up a doctor.
You pretty much clarified a lot of the things that I had going on in my life before I'm here. So aside from those, I have always been someone who's like loved problem solving, and I did tons of experiences working with like communities in terms of service all throughout college. And my like stepping stones of trying to become trying to determine what my next profession should be after college kind of amounted to both of those. And it came down to like, how can I best apply my love for problem solving and my curiosity for people's stories from doing service projects to finding a fulfilling profession in my life. It came down to medicine or engineering, and I just felt like medicine was a lot more fulfilling in like a person to person level, and it just felt like I could make a really meaningful impact for people's lives like on a regular basis. And in terms of things that I love to do outside of this, I love playing chess. It's like one of my #1 hobbies and passions. Like moving to New York and doing that has been phenomenal. You go to parks all the time, you play random people. And you and I would play quite a bit in med school. And the beauty of being here is that you find people with all varied skill levels, much better than I could ever dream of being. And it's that kind of thing that goes a long way because you get to meet people from all walks of life doing activities in the city like that. #2, love world traveling. I would love to just keep doing that. Obviously, time is a huge constraint, but even in med school, I try to make a big effort to do that and expose myself to people of all walks of life, different cultures and places. And third passion of mine is just enjoying live music, exploring different genres, keeping eclectic tastes. And I try to pursue these all throughout even the busyness of residency because those are the things that keep me sane. And I would definitely encourage anyone watching this to stick to your passions and your biggest interests because it's a long road whenever you enter medicine and things can get really tough. But having those core attributes true to yourself will really keep you sane.
Yeah, I can confirm, Sham. Um, I don't remember exactly what your chess rating is, but my record against him is probably like 0 and 30. So he's pretty darn good. Um, so I have some fun questions for you, but I want to get into some important stuff first. You know, everyone in med school learns a different way. And one of the things I remember about med school is the way that I learned before med school wasn't quite applicable and wasn't really getting the job done to learn the material that we had to learn. And everybody kind of adapts and evolves a different method of studying for the just exorbitant loads of information that we have to know. So, how would you describe the way that you learned as a med student?
So like I would definitely agree. The same thing happened to me. Like going from like undergrad studies and all that into med school was like definitely like a train wreck. It was wild first trying to encounter that. And obviously we all adapt, like you were saying. So like for me in college, I really was never someone who took down notes. I just like kind of felt like it was a little bit redundant for me because I never really looked at the notes that I wrote down. Usually you would get like textbooks assigned for courses or you have like online text you could read. And just doing that, I would typically in college like read like the texts, like textbooks and all that, the chapters before lecture, just to get like a quick refresher as to what they're going to be talking about, and then go into it and then try to, I guess, absorb as much information as I could and try to review that either with like online lectures that they posted afterward or just the textbook that I had again. And you couldn't really do that as well in med school. Like you can't just sit there and hope for the best. But in med school, like I kind of grew to learn this like triple pass rule that I think a lot of our classmates did, is where like you would get you typically have like 4 lectures per day for our classes from like 8 to 12 p.m. And so 4 lectures, and I would try to read up. They would post these like lectures or like the topics a few days beforehand. I would try to read the slides that they have for that PowerPoint beforehand just to see what they're going to be talking about. And then truly the 3 pass rule would be I would go through the lecture once as it's happening. And then later on that day, I would review the slides for that same lecture, maybe a little bit faster than I was for the first time listening to a lecture. And then try to retain as much as I can. And then at the weekend, because our exams were every Monday, as horrifying as that sounds, our weekends were dedicated to studying for these tests.
They did not let us have fun on the weekends.
Yeah, that was fun. But on the weekends, I would dedicate it to doing a third pass of all the lectures from that week. Just kind of like, I guess, flying through the slides so I'm not spending too much time because there's a lot of lectures to go over each weekend. So I'd do that. Sometimes I'd make like flashcards and Anki to like retain some like really nitty-gritty details that they love testing on. Super low yield, but I mean for like the board exams, but high yield for the school specific test. And like when it progressed on to closer to our second year, we could kind of use more of the outside resources like UWorld, Pathoma, Boards and Beyond. I'll try to use those too, but kind of that was my typical routine. I never did that in college, and I kind of had to learn to do that. And you're right, it's a ton of information, but it gets you in the routine, and you get really efficient.
Yeah, it's truly med school is truly a challenge of you figuring out what's important to learn and like learning how to integrate multiple different third-party sources and not just the lectures to learn what you're supposed to know because it's just so many different angles to learn the same thing. And sometimes there could be 10 different ways to learn something, and 8 out of those 10 don't just don't help you remember it. And then 2 out of 10 make it click. And it's just the way it is. Um, so you matched at your number one choice in anesthesia at Mount Sinai. Not everyone can say that. That's a great accomplishment. So talk to me about the things that you did during your third and fourth year that you think made that possible.
Thanks, man. That was like easily my crowning achievement. I like am so happy every day and grateful that it happened. In terms of making it happen, I am thankful I was like very calculated with my approach. Towards my fourth year, I was still choosing between anesthesia and emergency medicine. So it was not like I had this all planned out way in advance. I had to like really kind of do quick calculations to make sure that everything would work out. So I planned out my schedule where I would have like my EM sub I and then my anesthesia sub I like back to back before like all like the applications went out and everything. But during my like right before our application season, it like we were limited to just one away rotation due to COVID. So it was either I needed to do it for emergency medicine or anesthesia. And after talking with like tons of mentors at our school and like life friends, like life mentors that I have from family friends who are like in medicine, I really was trying to give like a detailed pros and cons list between the two. And my gut instinct and like what I saw myself, how I saw myself being best fulfilled with my path, I was thinking anesthesia. And I mean, spoiler alert, I am so happy I went that route. But I can get into that later. But I applied for an anesthesia away rotation a few months before like I even started my fourth year, and I did it at Mount Sinai. So I like did like heavy research in all the New York programs. It was my dream city to live in, and I thought residency would be the perfect time to try like finally try to experience that. And Mount Sinai just kind of like shined as like the perfect program for me, and I just like went all in on it. I was like, screw it, I don't need any other program to do an away rotation. I think doing it there would be perfect. And like I got like a position there, and then I did it the following month right after my anesthesia home rotation at the University of Cincinnati. And the reason why I did the away rotation is because I was scared that even though I'm from the East Coast, I grew up like right outside of DC in Maryland, that I would have some sort of like regional bias coming from the Midwest because I went to med school there. So like just to play it safe, because I don't have like direct connections to New York, I really felt like I just want to really assure that I can have a stronger chance of matching there. So I did the way rotation, and then I just tried my best to really impress everyone that I worked with. I like really did my research like every single day before every case that I was doing, and really try to make sure that I could shine as an away rotator. And I really tried to like hone my skills in the home rotation, make any mistakes I needed to, so that I wouldn't do it at my away rotation. And then even that limited time, like I tried to explore different opportunities I could do in anesthesia, so I could really make sure that my application shines more to that. Before that, I had a lot of experiences in emergency medicine, which is fine. You can right now you could apply to anesthesia with different backgrounds, and you could still be just fine doing that. I wanted to play it safe. I like try to get a bunch of different research projects under my belt. Thankfully, I had like a really welcoming mentor at UC to like take me under his wing for anesthesia, Dr. Crow. Props to you. Really very thankful for you. And he helped me like get connected with a lot of people at the school and like have different research opportunities. And then as I was talking with him and doing my own research, I found like the ASA's like mentorship or like the senior advisor program. Tried to and ran for that. Thankfully, got that position and kind of used all these different experiences under my belt in the oil rotation. And thankfully, it really worked out and kind of had everything work. The stars aligned, and I matched at Sinai on match day. So
Good. That must have been like the most euphoric feeling of your life.
seriously, like
Yeah. It was cool to share that moment with you too on match day. It was an incredible day.
yeah, man. I was shuffling in front of everybody because I was so happy. Like, it was amazing.
If I can find that video, I'll probably stitch it into this video. So it was worth the price of admission. Oh my gosh. If I didn't match that day, it would have been worth it to see Shyam shuffling across the stage. Oh my gosh. All right. I'm gonna find that video and I'm gonna include in this. Yeah, and I'd like to add like a pretty important point. The importance of doing your home rotation first in the specialty that you want to do. So at your home rotation, the attendings and the mentors that you work with on a daily basis, they have a familiarity level with you that they're more graceful and understanding of the mistakes that you make, and they'll actually help guide you through those and teach you how to not make those mistakes again. So like if you're rotating in a surgical residency, get all your OR etiquette mistakes out of the way at your home rotation so that you're not breaking the sterile field at your away rotation. Like that seems
Yeah.
like an obvious one, but there are a million ways to screw up in the OR. If you're doing a surgical rotation or an anesthesia rotation, I mean, if you're in the OR, there's basically like one way to do things right and a million ways to do things wrong. So getting used to that at your home rotation is super important because it lets you get those mistakes out of the way and go to your away rotation looking like a rock star. So super important.
Our anesthesia clerkship director at our school famously said that the only way you can screw up an anesthesia rotation is if you beat up the attending. So, I didn't do that. So as long as you guys don't do that, you're totally set.
Um, yeah, we certainly don't. We do not endorse violence here on the Tim Jalbert podcast by any means. And neither does Shyam's anesthesia mentor. So,
Those are words.
um, all right. So next important question: how much do you deadlift?
Not enough, man. Never enough. My peak in college was like 345, I believe. No, sorry, no. Don't. I can't underestimate myself there. I
Oh
think
my
it's like,
goodness. Nope, it's done. Put it
and
in the
now
record books, 345.
now it's plummeted. I have not had enough time to keep practicing that, but it'll be back. It'll be back.
Okay, okay. I may or may not also stitch in the video of you doing the deadlift at UMD.
Oh,
You looked huge. Your chest was like 2 feet out in front. That's how big your chest was back then. I don't know what you were eating for breakfast, but my goodness.
just doesn't even get involved in the deadlift, but it makes its presence known.
Your deadlifts were so good that it was working out your chest too. I can't explain that.
It's amazing. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm.
Yeah. All right. So, how did you make time for all the traveling that you did in med school, and how many countries did you hit while you were in med school?
Ooh, let's see. How many countries did I hit? I went to, I mean, right before med school, I did this amazing trip, like all around the world, hit like 5, 6 different countries. And so I wanted to, it was like a trip around the world in 30 days, which was unforgettable. I kind of wanted to like keep traveling a little bit throughout med school. I thought I would just like not have any time, but you can find time. Like in the breaks that you get in between, there's always time you can go travel. I like went to let's see. I went to Barcelona in spring of our first year. I went to several different places in Europe, like France, the Netherlands. Went to Belgium. Went to Japan for New Year's one day. That was awesome. Then I went to the Caribbean for a nice cruise, and maybe a few others. But I tried to be a little bit expansive with my trips around the world. And then COVID kind of got in the way, and then I couldn't really do much after that. But I probably would have liked enjoying traveling even through third and fourth year.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
how
if it weren't for COVID, you probably would have been like knocking on Guinness World Records for number of countries visited during a rigorous medical school curriculum.
I would have just left medicine, just traveled full time.
Hey man, as an anesthesiologist, you'll be able to do a lot of traveling.
I know. It's like the market's hot right now, and many people have like vacations for like they have like 10 to 12 weeks vacation at 10. I'm like, say less. Oh my goodness.
Such a great field. So a bit of a more, I kind of want to get into, medical school is just not an easy time for anybody. I myself consider myself to have pretty rock solid mental health, but in med school, at certain times, I suddenly found myself in a deep pit of depression occasionally. I bounced back from it, in my own methods. Luckily, I have a loving now wife who helped me through that. But, not everybody's as lucky as me and has a significant other and a partner to, hang out with and talk about things. What for you was kind of the most mentally challenging part of med school, or emotionally challenging, and how did you get through those times?
Dude, how long do you have? I could go on and on about this. No, I'm kidding. Like, I like going from my home area, like the DC area, to Cincinnati. That alone was a culture shock for me. It was really tough for me to transition from that to a whole new place. Like, not only is it a different culture, but I had no support system there. I was far from my family. And like the US, it's just me and my parents. I don't have any siblings. I don't have like any family anywhere else in the country. So I will say bold move that I did that. But
Hmm.
I had to adjust to a lot of things all at once. I mean, med school is rough, and having to deal with all those major transitions too makes it really freaking rough. So in my first year, like I didn't really have anyone to lean on. I mean, thankfully I made friends like you and a few others, and like could talk and share experiences that way. But I was for sure depressed. I may not have even realized it at the time, but I was like definitely in a deep dark depression. So thankfully, I like really made the initiative to like find things that keep me happy, even in the new environment. Try to make as many friends as I could in Cincinnati, and um, help me get through it that way. It was definitely really tough in the start, for sure. But as you grow your support system, and I really cannot understate that, I cannot emphasize this enough. Like when you're finding a place that you want to go for med school residency, learn from my experience. Try to have a support system there. If you are someone who could really like, utilize that or like find some comfort in that, because if you're going to a whole new place and you're going about to undergo like a really tough endeavor like med school residency, you should have some people you can lean on because you're going to be thinking like in the back of your head, like, man, like if I just went somewhere that I could really just talk to the people I find myself most comfortable with, then maybe this would be a little bit easier. And eventually it does work out, but try to avoid like the that difficulty in the beginning if you can.
Yeah, and I just as like a very important sidebar, I mean, it's like it creeps up on you fast in a in a in a in an endeavor as difficult as medical school, where 90% of your focus is on your mistakes and what questions you're getting wrong, what you don't know, as opposed to the vast amounts of information that you do know. It's just the environment in med school is so competitive that even your friends, even people in your support system are people that in the back of your mind, depending on whether you're applying to the same specialty, there's this feeling that you have to be competing against them.
Yeah,
And so that adds a thin layer of toxicity to medical school, in my opinion, where, you know, a lot of medical schools these days have moved to true pass fail where they don't actually have class rankings. But I know that our school, Cincinnati, that it's pass fail for, each course, and each block is pass fail. But at the end of your 4 years, you do get put in a quartile, and
yeah,
that quartile gets sent to programs you know, to stratify you as to whether you'll get ranked for
yeah,
residency. So it's a real thing, and it's a real um, it's tough. And I know I can just say our med school was competitive. It
yeah.
was super competitive. Like I remember feeling like I took the best exam of my life and getting a good, what I thought was a great score, and then finding out the class average was like 2 points above it. Like every time.
Tale as old as time, dude. I can definitely relate to that. Like, I just want to say, like, disclaimer, this is what our first year was essentially like. Like, we would just be studying the entire week, and then I said our weekend was dedicated to studying. We would have Monday off after our exam that day, and then it's not like you can really go out and do stuff. It's a Monday. So
we would
like,
we would still figure out ways to rage on Monday
yeah,
night.
like if we try to find on Mondays, but it's essentially just us. And then you're just back in the grind right after. And like I was living right in front of the hospital the whole time, so all I saw was UC. All I knew was studying or staying in my room and studying. And then you would just have no weekends, and you'd have Monday off. And like I know it sounds brutal. That's why I was like really struggling through that. But thankfully it got better. I like made sure I made the initiative to like move away from the area, move downtown in Cincinnati, and then really thrive in like meeting tons of people and like having more exciting experiences I could like relish in aside from like med school and all that, and that really helped. Um, like that's probably one of my biggest regrets is like not doing that from the get-go. I knew I thrive in cities. I knew I like would really like to be in a downtown area, but I lived in the outskirts closer to the school to play it safe. Like if I could go back, I would have just lived downtown, really prioritized in being somewhere in that city where I'm really happy. And that would have like made my studying experience overall so much more enjoyable. And would definitely emphasize that to everybody. Like your happiness is crucial. And you will be so much more successful if you find ways to be happy in med school and in residency. And I'm so much happier here in New York. It's my favorite place in the world. And thankfully, like studying for step three has been a breeze for me because like I'm just like finding different coffee shops or like different libraries I can study in. And although it sucks to be studying for step three, I'm like I love where I am, and that like makes it so much easier. And I wish I had to really prioritize that in med school.
I I have to 100% agree with you. Like one of the realizations that like, I know that you had, but I definitely had in med school because I originally wanted to do neurosurgery, which
That's right. Yeah.
lifestyle wise, you know, you don't really have a lifestyle outside the hospital when you're a neurosurgeon.
We don't have that time to do this.
No, none of you would know who I am. You really wouldn't. But you know, I it's I came to realization that like in the end, your job as a physician, it is a calling, but it is still just a job in a sense. So, obviously the best physicians are the ones that are passionate about what they do. And that's, I still feel passionate about taking care of people, as I know Sham does as well. But there has to be, for me anyway, and for a lot of students that I think are realizing these days, is that there has to be a balance. And, you know, I decided later on that like you want to design your life to be the way you want it around medicine so that you have a life that you love outside the hospital that you can look forward to returning to if things get really stressful. The hospital can get super, super rough. Even, one day you can have an amazing day where all your patients are improving and everybody's happy, the families love you, they give you high fives. And then the next day, patients could be crashing and you don't know what's going on and the attending's yelling at you and everybody's trying to figure out and it's just a nightmare. So medicine is really a roller coaster because nothing is scheduled. Patients don't tell you when they're going to get sicker, and attending, nobody tells you when you're going to have double the patient load that you did yesterday. It's just a very emotionally stressful job that you need to have a life that you can relax and enjoy outside of the hospital.
100%. And that's why it's good that we're doing anesthesia. It really fits in
Oh
beautifully.
my gosh. Yeah. Tell me the story of how you landed the position in the ASA as the senior advisor of the
Mm.
Medical Student Component Governing Council.
Yeah. So
And,
like,
sorry, might I add, it was like a couple months after you decided to go to anesthesia, right? It was like very quick.
yeah, yeah. I was just like scrambling. I was just trying to grind and find ways I could really make myself known and shine in anesthesia. Like I said, I spoke with like mentors at UC, and I was just trying to find different ways I could be as involved as possible in anesthesia because I knew I loved like guiding people and like being a good presence that people could lean on. I like did like high school mentorship stuff in med school as I was like in my second and third year. So like I really enjoyed that. I felt like I could translate that experience well into doing something like this. So I learned about that program. I like had some free time during the time that ASA was happening. ASA is like a national conference. It's an organization, but they have the national ASA conference every year in a different place. And at that point, it was in San Diego, paradise. So I was like, screw it. I mean, like, might as well just go and give it a try. I had to like prepare a speech, short speech, but like in front of like all the delegates. Each school has like two delegates that get sent off to ASA. I had to try to present myself to be someone who would be worthwhile and very like productive in the program. And so I flew out there. I did it. I gave it a try. And thankfully, the people they believed in me, and I was so happy to have been selected. I got to do really cool things like interview program directors and upload that online for like prospective students to look at, make like different documents to like be helpful for different students who want to like learn different parts about the application process. I even like did like a paired up like a resident medical student mentorship program where like say a student doesn't have like a home anesthesia program or whatever it is, or they want to be connected with residents at a different institution somewhere else in the country. I helped align the different interests that the residents had and the medical students had and pair them up. It was like I and one of my like the president of the ASA Medical Student Governing Council, she and I worked together on this, and we were like the matching algorithm where we would like look through every single person's data and pair them up. And thankfully, many students were really happy with that. And it was a great experience. Highly recommend it. If I learned anything from it, it's like really, if you find some enjoyable experience in your life, try to maximize it and find different opportunities that can really help you like explore that opportunity more and like your skills in that. And just put yourself out there. Who knows? Maybe something will work out. You won't know if you don't try. So I did, and it was thankfully a beautifully worthwhile experience.
Awesome. It's like, it's so powerful what can happen when you just go meet people. It, people that have really high positions can just really like you and see potential in you, and boom, you have a position and you part of a strong network. So I love that story. So I guess we only have a few minutes. So I wanted to ask you one parting question. What about the field of medicine inspires you the most?
I sit there in the OR thinking about this every single day. Um, I would say it is an ever-growing field, and there's so much hope. There's so much hope. Like when I'm like in the OR for anesthesia, yeah, I'm seeing like the surgery team think about this new novel technique for like a pathology that's usually really hard to treat. And like thankfully Sinai is like a great hospital for this. Like there are so many new advancements happening in medicine at this hospital, and I'm sure at like many other big hospitals as well. But you get to hear like different advancements that are happening, like different research, and like that there is a lot of hope and treatments for conditions that we used to think were like kind of impossible. There are several that I encounter, so I can't really name out a specific one, but when I hear that and I see that happening for patients right away, like in the hospital, like right after the surgery, or even when I'm rotating on like medicine right now. And although it's a pretty brutal experience being in internal medicine and as an anesthesia resident, you get to like hear like different thought processes and like new research articles that we talk about on rounds in terms of treatments for different patients. And what was really cool is that like over the course of me entering even as a medical student to now, you can hear like different ways of like thinking about traditional medical problems and like different conditions. And a lot of these patients are doing great because of that. And when you're at a hospital that always exercises new ways of practicing medicine as we know it, you get to see a lot of beautiful changes happen in their lives. And I think medicine is one of the most ever growing fields that we can encounter. And it's dope. I mean, like you really can see that from when we're attending, we're probably going to see medicine practice in a whole different way than what we're seeing now. So it's definitely a beautiful field to see meaningful impacts happen in people's lives in ways that you didn't initially think would happen.
Sham, I just want to thank you so much for your time and insights into field of anesthesia, how you got through med school, and you know your optimistic vision of the field of medicine. And much appreciated, my man. Best of luck with the rest of your residency at Mount Sinai. I know you're going to do great things in the field of anesthesia. You're going to have a lot to teach people. You're going to have, you're going to set a great example for up and coming medical students that want to go into anesthesia. Keep doing what you're doing. I hope to have you on the podcast again soon. And yeah, any closing thoughts?
Dude, when we're finally attendings, we'll be like co-program directors at a hospital and just like run shit. It'll be dope. It'll be great. And honestly, it was a true honor. Thank you so much for having me, man. You're gonna do awesome things. And when eventually when I start my own YouTube channel, I got you, man. You're gonna be number one.
Oh yeah. I'll have to be the number one, the first guest on the Shyam Lakshman podcast. The deadlift podcast.
We had a little question if you can drop a freestyle and if you can shuffle for me.
Neither. Well, I can jerk. I can reject. It's like back in high school. Yeah, man. That's it. That's a wrap.